Hi there Booktube, it's Eleanor here and it's time for my What I've Read video. Today I've got quite a lot to talk about, so I will be moving quite swiftly, but before we start I want to talk to you about my Booktuber Shoutout for this week. This week I want to shout out Whitney from All the Shelves. I've recently just found Whitney's channel myself and I absolutely adore it. She is a brilliant booktuber and she's got some really interesting thoughts and tastes. I've already picked up maybe 3 or 4 comics that she has recommended and discussed on her channel. She does a segment where she talks about the comics that she's reading currently, and I really love those videos. So I'm really excited because she's discussing comics that I hadn't heard of. So I'm really enjoying her channel and I thought it might be somebody that you would like to check out. So I'll leave all the links down below as usual and go and check her out. And if you like what you see, subscribe and show her some BookTube love. Okay, so let's talk about the books that I've read this week. This week I've read a number of books as well as some comics and bind-ups. So firstly, I want to talk about a buddy read I did, which was The Last Werewolf by Glenn Duncan, which I read with the lovely Olive from the book Olive. This is a story of Jake. He is a werewolf and he is now the last werewolf. We find that out in the very first page. All the other werewolves have been killed and he is the last living werewolf. He is hundreds of years old. He's disillusioned with life. And this is a dark, gritty, crude and sexually explicit story, which was a refreshing change from the usual sort of werewolf paranormal romancy type books that you tend to come across with this type of theme. I really enjoyed this. It was really fun and fast and action-packed, which is exactly up my street, and it was really compelling to read on. However, the further I got into this book, the more predictable I felt it came, and the more sort of gratuitous the sexual content I felt was. I didn't feel like it was needed all of the time, and so it just I don't mind sex in my books, I don't mind graphic sex in my books, but when it doesn't seem to be needed, I find that sometimes grates on me, and I felt in this that there was just too much, and often it wasn't something that was needed to pull the plot along. This is part, I think, of a trilogy, and although it was an okay book, it's not one that I'm going to be continuing on with. However, it was really interesting reading with Olive. This is the first buddy read that I've done with her, and I really enjoyed it. She had some really interesting points and thoughts that she brought up when we were reading, so I would definitely like to buddy read with her again. And I gave this one 3 stars. The final 2 books that I read this week were books 2 and 3 in a trilogy, and that was Golden Sun and Morning Star by Pierce Brown. I read Red Rising last year and really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. It was a brilliant read and I couldn't wait to move on to Golden Sun. For some reason I just hadn't picked it up, but when I got invited to go to a Pierce Brown event in London, I thought, right, now is the time. I'd like to finish both of the books and really get stuck into the series, because often I find if I marathon the books I really get immersed in the story and really enjoy it a lot more. I liked Golden Sun. I can't talk too much about the plot, but I'll tell you a bit about Red Rising. Basically it's set on a world where there is different colours for different types of jobs. So you've got the top, the cream of the crop, the people that are sort of godlike, and they are the golds, and then there's various different there's violets and pinks and greys, and right down to the bottom, which is the reds, which are like the mining community. The reds have been kept in the dark. They don't know that there is this above ground. They think they're mining to make Mars a habitable place for people to live. Little do they know that it's been habitable for a long time. And things start to come apart when a red called Darrow, something happens to him which changes the course of his life, and he ends up infiltrating the Golds and going through their sort of academy, and it's just brilliant. I love it. It's so in depth. And these books are really about friendship, and I just love that. There's politics and space battles and twists and turns. Red Rising, as I say, I gave 5 stars. Golden Sun felt very much like a middle book, and I did still really enjoy it, but it dragged a little bit in places, and so I gave this one 4 stars. And then when I moved on to Morning Star, this started with a bang. This is an ARC copy, so the real cover doesn't actually look like this. It started with a bang, and oh, I loved it. I was semi-buddy reading it with Caitlin from Kitty G, because we were both reading it at the same time, and I'm so pleased we were, because there was times where we were like, oh, I need to talk to you about this, and have you read this bit, and oh my god, and it was just brilliant. I really really loved this, and it was a very, very good ending to a really great series, and I gave this one 5 stars. And I can't wait to see if they bring it out as a film or a TV series, because I think it's going to be epic. So now for the comics and graphic novels that I read. Firstly, I picked up 2 from my library. The first one was Jane the Fox and Me by Fanny Britt and Isabella Arsenault. I picked this up because Mercedes had talked about it and basically Mercedes said to me, this is one of my favourite books, but Eleanor, you won't like it because we have really dissimilar tastes, and that is true. And I thought, no, I won't pick it up. But when it was in my library, I thought, well, it's free, I can give it a go. So I thought I'd pick it up just to see. And I really quite like the artwork in this. But again, I like my artwork bright, bold and punchy, so it was a bit more muted than I was used to, but that didn't put me off. It's a story of a young girl who is being bullied for being overweight, and she's being bullied quite mercilessly, and she's struggling, and it's the story of her, really. I did find some bits of this quite moving, but I found the Jane Eyre and Fox references a little bit irrelevant. I didn't feel like they added to the story in any way. I suppose they sort of add to the moral that it's not how other people see you that matters, it's about how you see yourself and needing to love yourself. But I just, you know, I'm not a massive Jane Eyre fan, and so this really wasn't the book for me in terms of brilliant. However, it was an enjoyable read, and I gave it 3 stars. Next up, also from the library, I picked up Beautiful Darkness by Fabian Vellman and Karaskoa. I apologise. I think this book is absolutely beautiful. It's drawn in watercolours, which I think is really pretty. The story is about these little people that live inside of a girl, and she dies, and so they have to leave her body and fend for themselves. It's very dark. It's showing a dark side of sort of humanity and survival. I think the problem for me is I got a bit lost in what was going on and what the point was, and yeah, so it was an okay read, and it's just such a shame because the drawings are, as I say, beautiful, and I really loved that side of it, but I just felt a bit lost with the story, and so for this one I gave 2 stars. Next up, I read quite a lot of comic issues. I finished I Hate Fairyland with issue 5, which was the final issue in this arc. This is by Scotty Young, and I have been loving this. It's been a 5-star read all along. Unfortunately, this final part, it was not as good as the others, and I didn't feel like there was as much action as I would have liked for this sort of epic finale, and so I gave this one 4 stars. I just felt like there could have been a bit more action and a bit more going on to make it a 5-star read. Next up, I picked up issues 1 and 2 of Hellcat, Patsy Walker aka Hellcat by Leith Williams Wilson, and I really enjoyed this. It's the story of Patsy Walker, and it's just about her and trying to fit in and find herself a job, and she's decided to set up like an agency for superpowered people who don't want to be superheroes. They want to be but they want to use their powers to help people. So yeah, I just found this really fun and entertaining, and I'm definitely going to be continuing with this series, and I gave both of these 4 stars. Next up, I continued with the Archie Comics, and I picked up issue 5 and 6. I'm really enjoying this. It's such a fun contemporary read. I like the artwork. It's very fun. It's set in a school. It's all about Archie and his friends and the situations they get themselves in, and it's a really, really fun, fun read, and I gave both of these 4 stars. And then finally I picked up a first issue of a comic by Image, which is Symmetry by Matt Hawkins and Raphael Ienco, that I wanted to give a go. I was intrigued by the premise of this. It's set in a world where everything is sort of dulled and people just sort of go along with what they need to do, and there's not really any choices, and they follow a set path, and then something happens and all hell breaks loose. This was okay. I didn't feel like I sort of got into it as much, but it may be that it needs a couple of issues to get going. But it was an okay read. I like the art style, but as I say, nothing groundbreaking, so I would give this one 3 stars. So that's all the books and comics that I finished this week. I'm currently reading In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, and number 4 in Peter V. Brett's Demon Cycle series, The Skull Throne. Both of these books I am buddy reading and hoping to finish before the end of the month. And then for the rest of the week, once I've finished these, I will be reading my Underhyped reads. So if you want to find out a bit more about what I'll be reading next week, check out my Underhyped reads TBR. But that's what I've read this week. What have you read? What have you enjoyed? Have you read any of these? What were your thoughts? Let's chat as always in the comments, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, Booktube.